lately we've had a number of customers ask us, what are my options if I want to buy renewable energy? And in fact, you have a ton of different options. And so I want to take a little bit of time in this video to help you understand what are the options that I have for buying renewable energy, and especially renewable electricity. And then what are the costs associated with it? And then what is the additionality, which is something that I'll get into a little bit later in the video and explaining what exactly that is. So the first thing I would want to understand when helping someone decide what kind of renewable energy they want to buy is, are you in a regulated or deregulated utility? So on the regulated side, and then we have the dereg side, your options are a little bit different, and that's because, as you know, regulated utilities, you have to buy your electrons from the utility company, and deregulation, you have other options. So the first two options for renewable electricity are actually pretty similar, and they are on the regulated side, you can buy either green tariffs or you can buy renewable energy credits, or I'm going to abbreviate them REC, RECs. On the dereg side, it's not that different. You have green energy that you're actually buying from your supplier, and then you also have RECs. So let's start with the tariffs and the green energy. That's basically you're going to the utility company and saying, do you have an option for renewable electricity that I can buy? What's the additional cost? And you buy it. What's happening here is they have assets that are either generating the energy or they are buying the renewable energy credits that are underlying that asset and retiring it in your name. So these, again, aren't that dissimilar. Generally speaking, when picking between the two, I like to pick the renewable energy credit because you have more control over what you're buying and how it works. So this is generally the lowest cost and easiest way to get renewable energy. The next step is a little bit more interesting, and that is what's called a power purchase agreement in the deregulated states and a virtual power purchase agreement in regulated states, which I'll say as a PPA and VPPA. In this circumstance, you're cutting out the middleman and you're actually investing in an actual renewable asset. So power purchase agreement, you're saying, I am willing to buy renewable energy from this wind farm for a set amount of time. And the reason why this works out really well is you have wind developers who are saying, I have bought this land, I know that it can produce a lot of renewable energy, we need someone to loan us the money to build this project. And the people who are loaning the money are sitting here saying, well, we're not going to give you any money to build this unless you have buyers that have come to the table and said, I'm willing to purchase the electricity. So what happens is you sign a contract that generally is at least 10 years, a lot of times 10 to 20 years is the common length, that says I will offtake the electrons from this wind site, and I will also take the underlying renewable energy credits and retire them. And that's how a power purchase agreement works. You're actually getting the electricity and you're getting the renewable energy credits. It works out really nicely. VPPAs are different. Because you can't purchase your electricity from anyone but the utility, you're doing what's a virtual power purchase agreement, which means you're saying, I'm backing someone financially to build this. And it's basically a financial instrument. These can actually get pretty complicated pretty quickly, but basically what you're saying is, I will guarantee that this wind site will generate 5 cents a kilowatt hour. And if power is sold for 6 cents a kilowatt hour, you'll actually get paid a penny by the developer. But if it sells for 4 cents a kilowatt hour, you have to pay the penny to make it up. And as part of that virtual power purchase agreement, or the VPPA, you get the offtake of the RECs. So that's where you are getting the renewable energy credits for power purchase in a virtual power purchase agreement. The last option is probably the cleanest and the one that you're most familiar with, and that is actually just building generation assets on site. So this is like, I'm going to call it distributed generation, or DG, and that is saying I'm going to put solar panels on the roof of my building, and that's going to offset a bunch of my renewable energy because I'm not going to need to buy it from the utility company. So these are your different options. Here's where it gets a little bit interesting. The considerations on how to choose between these different ones all come to two things. One is cost. So we'll have cost up here, and cost goes down as you move down this. So green energy and RECs are going to be pretty low cost. It's anywhere from 50 cents to $1 a megawatt hour to do something like a green tariff adder or renewable energy credits. Power purchase agreements, it's obviously you're gonna have to sign a more long-term contract for buying energy, which is gonna potentially add cost. And then absolutely, putting solar panels on your building is going to be a huge amount of capital that you have to invest up front. The other question is additionality. You might be asking, what is additionality? The easiest way to think about additionality is saying, if I don't do this financial transaction, will any renewable assets be built? Additionality is the idea that you are actually supporting and contributing to a growing industry for renewable energy, not just maintaining the existing one. So in the REX example, let's say that there's a wind farm in the thumb of Michigan that's been running for 5 years and you decide to buy REX from it. Nothing else is being constructed. You are still maintaining a market, there's still value in you buying that REC, but you are not driving any new construction of renewable assets into the utility grid. And so that's where additionality is pretty low for green tariffs and RECs. Almost all the time you're buying RECs from existing assets in that case. Power purchase agreements, however, and virtual power purchase agreements are quite a bit different. There's a ton of additionality there because you're on the buy side of the transaction. You have developers who have land and want to build something. You have financial people who are saying, I have a bunch of money and I want to invest in a project, but I won't do it unless someone has the guarantee that they're going to purchase that. And then you sit there and say, well, yes, I guarantee I'll purchase that electricity. So you're adding quite a bit of additionality and saying, I'm going to show up to the other end of this transaction and make sure that this gets built. So this is generally seen as a very strong additionality. But obviously, the best additionality of all time is going to be building distributed generation on your site, because if you don't build it, it doesn't exist. And if you invest in it, then it's absolutely there. So you have, in theory, perfect additionality. So those are all the considerations that you need to think about when you're talking about renewable energy. It's a very complicated topic that is changing rapidly, but it's something worth considering, and it's worth understanding what are your goals so that you can purchase the product that's the best for you.